logical and rational, and having to basically reverse engineer intimacy and connection.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I really love to do is take these more emotional ideas and break them down into tangible concepts with steps that people who have a more rational brain can understand. And we were also talking about the barrier to entry, because the learning curve on this stuff, the learning curve on being able to communicate with physical parts of my body, being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions, that is all an exponential curve. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very challenging at the beginning, and it's a muscle. So the more we exercise it, the easier it becomes. At the same time, the practice, in my experience, the practice of sitting with emotions, sitting with difficult emotions, learning how to process emotions from my body, and learning how to recognize emotions as physical sensations in my body, have paid, out of anything I've done in my life, have paid by far the largest dividends, the largest return on investment of my time and energy, translated into my own personal happiness and fulfillment. So what I would really invite is people who are willing to take on the beginning of that learning curve, which is really challenging, right? Think of somebody who has never played sports, never really exercised or been in a gym, walking into a gym to lift weights for the first time in their adult life. Can be incredibly intimidating, and it can feel really frustrating. It can be really painful and really uncomfortable, and you don't necessarily see results right away. And a lot of people will walk away, and that's totally understandable. And I invite people to consider that once you actually stick with it,
right,
few weeks, few months, whatever it is, you will see you'll reach that inflection point where you're sitting with these emotions, you're feeling the physical sensations inside of your body, and you have so much more awareness, you have so much more ability to make that choice in the moment of instinct, to choose human spirit, that your life starts to change before your eyes. The way you interact with people starts to change. The way you're able to connect with people starts to change. Your sex life starts to change. And to me, that's so much of what contributes to my healthiness and happiness and emotional well-being. So to me, it's so worth it. So what I really invite is anybody who's out there who thinks, wow, I would really love to be able to connect with people more. Mm-hmm. I'd really love to be able to have this kind of sex that I hear people talking about, but doesn't feel possible for me. The people who feel like I see other people doing that, but I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if I'll ever get there. I don't know if it's possible. And I'm still willing to sit and do something that's uncomfortable, to try it. That's really what I would love to see.
People who are willing to put in the work, right? Like it's mm-hmm. easy for me, for anybody, but I'll use myself as an example. You know, I can sit and say, here's all my challenges, or here are the challenges that I've had in my life, and I'm trying to fix them, and complain about whatever, the dating, the this, the that. But if I'm not willing to do the work, and this obviously translates to all the parts of our lives, right? You know, in your career, not even depending, in your career, with your children, with yourself, you got to put in the work. I don't think there's anybody on the planet who doesn't have some sort of work to do. I would wish, and this is why I was so happy to hear that you do work with men as well. And let me clarify this by saying I'm not a men versus women type of person. I don't really subscribe to that whole narrative that, you know, the world's going to hell in a handbasket because all the men suck. I don't believe that. But I will say that it feels like, to me, at least in the circles that I run in, that the women are the ones who are more willing to voluntarily dig in and do the work on themselves. And sometimes I think that most times it comes with age, right? You know, so my friends, my peers who are closer to my age, we've been through a lot, and we've decided actively, there's things about myself that I want to improve or learn about. I don't know if that's instinctive for men, generally speaking, but it feels good that there are people who are willing to work with both men and women and understand. I guess I'm not sure where I'm going with this, other than just
that there's an opportunity.
There's an opportunity for men mm-hmm. as well to dig in, and so there has to be, it doesn't seem like it's very natural for them to just voluntarily go, oh, I've had all these challenges. Maybe I should work on myself. At least not from the experience of the men that I know.
Well, I'd like to say two things about that. The first one is I think men are starting at a disadvantage, and not by their own fault. But if you think about our experience of feeling like a burden and not wanting to be seen as, weak and needy and overly emotional, we still have a lot more permission for women to be emotional in our society than we have for men.
Right.
So men are really raised from a young age to not cry, to not get upset, to not take things personally, to not, all these things, to stay strong, to stay stoic, to stay in control all the time. And so I want to just acknowledge that, that curve can be even more difficult at the beginning for men because there's so much reliance on them to be the rock.
But I don't even think that it has to be like, this is where I get a little, I'm not sure if I agree or not. It doesn't have to be about, I want to be emotional. Like if I'm a man, it's about, I want to learn who I am. Like what makes me tick? What makes me happy? I feel like generally, that is where the interest in learning becomes a thing. And for us, we end up diving down the emotional road because we are emotional beings. It doesn't have to be like that for a man. Great. If a man, I'm advocating for your work and with a man, but all I'm saying is like, for somebody, a human, to make a conscious decision to improve themselves, whatever area that is, whether it's emotional, whether it's career, that's what I'm saying. Like coming to the conclusion that I'm a certain level of human and I know I can be better in whatever areas that I need to improve. It feels like to me, women are more interested in presenting themselves that opportunity. Do you think I'm wrong?
I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I think that there are maybe different ways that we do this. I want to say one other thing here because we've talked a lot about sex and dating here. And I wanted to speak to any of the men who are out there. As a woman who has been through a lot of personal growth workshops, if you want to pick up women,
go there.
It's an excellent place to do it. Excellent. Because it's true that there are, in my experience, there have been fewer men in the personal growth workshops that I've done than there are women. So I think there's a massive opportunity there. As far as the personal improvement thing, I actually think that, the wildly successful podcasts like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, Aubrey Marcus.
Super fair point.
Those types of men have massive followings and it's all about self-improvement, right? Yep. All about self-optimization. And there's all these ways that we can improve ourselves, whether it's, consciousness and plant medicine, or it's physical health, or it's emotion and relationships and connection. Because I do think the relationships and connection piece is pretty intricately tied with the emotional piece.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess I'm probably overgeneralizing. I find that my conversations, again, this is coming more from a curiosity of me wanting to understand humans and specifically men, because obviously I'm in a space where I'm trying to explore that and what that means for me, right? So I'm curious. And so as I dive in with conversations, they always feel very, I have to push and prod to get intimate with my conversations. And I don't mean intimate in the sense that we have to talk about sex. I just mean you and I can have a connected, intimate conversation, and we met each other an hour ago, right? That doesn't happen very often when you sit down, even with my close male friends, which I'm a person probably similar to you. All my life, most of my friends have been male. I did not necessarily have girlfriends either until very recently. So maybe that's where my curiosity is, like, why did I have all these male friends for so many years and we never once talked about anything emotional or intimate or even super connected? Everything stayed pretty surface.
Yeah, there's actually a real evolutionary reason for that. And coming back to Alison Armstrong's work again, anybody who's interested in why do women behave differently from men, I can't recommend her work more. She's really amazing. And what she says about this is that when men are in hunting mode, they're single focused. So they see a specific goal and they go after it, and everything else is a distraction. And this can be really hard for women because sometimes the women are the distraction, and they see, oh, if he loved me more, he would pay attention to me. But actually, he's just really focused on one thing. And when a man is in hunting mode, focused on that one thing and going after it, he is very sensitive to showing any weakness. And so that's vulnerability. That's sharing any weaknesses he might have. It's also sharing his strengths. Because think about it. If you want to be the most powerful competitor, or the most powerful hunter, you would have nobody know your strengths or your weaknesses, because that puts you in the best position to win. And so men are actually evolutionarily programmed to not share those things. And so it's particularly challenging for them. Whereas women, if we're in our gathering mode, which is, I used to, when I say used to, many, many generations ago, when I was a gatherer, would be walking around the field and collecting the berries and tracking which nuts are ready and which ones aren't and which things are poisonous, all while watching the children play and making sure there's no bears around, right? So I have what's called diffuse awareness. Women in gathering mode have diffuse awareness. They can track many things at once, and then they share those details with the people they love. They come back to the tribe and they say, the berries that are almost ripe are over here. The poisonous berries are over here. We didn't see any bears today. You should be safe to go there. And this is one of the reasons why women are so keen to share all the details of an experience. If a woman doesn't share the details of an experience with you, if you ask her how her day was and she's like, oh, it's fine, that there's a good signal that woman doesn't really trust you or doesn't see you as being part of her tribe, because she's not ready to share the details. So I hear this frustration from women a lot of, feeling like men aren't showing up in conscious community as much. And I'm seeing more and more men, and I think it actually gives them more space to come meet us where we are if we give them allowance for the unique challenges that they have that are different from the way that women interact with this work.
I think ultimately, as we dive into this conversation, I realize so many things actually, but trust is it sounds obvious. Everybody says that you have to trust, but it really is like, it seems like the foundation of all of the relationships, in the sense that I want to feel like I can trust having a conversation with him about my day. So this was a great example that you just said about when he says, how was your day? And you just go, oh, it's fine. And he thinks, oh, she doesn't trust me. Obviously, probably not actively, but there's that feeling now that he's like, maybe she doesn't trust me. This is where the intricacies of these relationships are so vital, because it's maybe not that I don't trust him. It's that I haven't quite figured out in my head all of it yet.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to say, just start talking to you in like verbal diarrhea, because as I'm talking, I'll probably figure it out. Guys don't operate that way. So I've learned in my experience that every single time I haven't taken a beat and thought, I need to sort all this shit out in my head before I say it, I've regretted it. And I don't know if that's me, if that's common for women. But that is another challenge where it's like, it's not that I don't trust him. It's just that I haven't figured it out yet. So there has to be, again, back to the communication, right? Like maybe that's a conversation that you have with your partner, and you're like, he's the more time you spend with somebody, obviously they get to know you, right? But I know like this, I have a checklist, like this is one of my biggest challenges. It's not that I don't trust you. It's, I don't really know what I'm trying to say yet. And so I'm communicating this to you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's really wonderful to take that time and create that space and take a beat and think, okay, what really feels good for me to share here, and how can I convey it in a way that's most likely to be received in the way that I intend to convey it?
This is great work that you're doing. I think I'm really excited that we got connected. I'm so happy that you were here. I think you're doing everybody a service, especially the fact that you're working with both, like you said,